I would honestly rather die than go back to working a 9 to 5 job. And that's not an exaggeration. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm being 100% serious. And I'm not saying I would actually end it all if I had to get a 9 to 5 job. I'm just saying that I'm not going to get a 9 to 5 job. I'm not trying to get a 9 to 5 job. I'm not doing it. Toiling away, completing boring, meaningless tasks I don't care about at all, it's just draining to the core, and it's just a miserable existence. And I'm sure theoretically there might be some job out there that I would actually enjoy that would pay enough to be worth it, but the chances of me actually finding that mysterious job, it's not likely. I mean, if that perfect job even does exist, there's no way I could ever find it. Just, probabilistically speaking, there's no way. And I've talked a lot on this channel about my past work experience and the various jobs I've had throughout the years. And I've also talked a lot about my education background. So for those that don't know, I am qualified to work high-paying jobs. I have a master's degree in computer science from a top-ranked university, so I should be able to find a decent job. And in the grand scheme of things, a job as a software developer would probably be better than most jobs. I do enjoy coding, and most developer jobs pay pretty well, at least compared to a lot of other jobs. And that's actually the reason why I originally went back to school to get the degree in computer science, because my bachelor's degree was in another STEM field. And I was employed in that field when I first started working on my master's degree. And I really hated that job, so I figured I'd switch careers and become a software developer because that's something that might be a little more bearable, but now thinking about it more, I'm not so sure. In fact, I am pretty sure that it would probably not be any more bearable than my old job, because I don't think the actual work is the main issue. Like, it wasn't the actual work that made me hate my old job so much. It was everything else about it. It was the commute. It was the forced social interactions, which are all fake, by the way. Nobody is being their true self in an office environment. And it's not like I didn't hate my coworkers or anything. In fact, I did like most of them. They seem like good people. But everybody puts on their work persona before they go into work. Nobody's actually being their true self. Which is fine, by the way. I understand why everybody tries their best to be, just as inoffensive and more work-focused or whatever in the workplace. I'm not saying people should be talking about politics or whatever all day at work, but it's just that being in that sterile, fake environment, everything is gray and beige, everything is boring, and so much of the actual work itself is just useless. I know for a fact which people at my old job actually did productive work versus which people actually didn't do anything at all. But I think the biggest thing I've realized recently, the main reason I think I'd rather die than go back to working 9 to 5, actually there's two main reasons. The first reason is just all of the wasted time. If you work a full-time job, then you already know this, but it's not just the 40 hours of work that you're losing when you work a full-time job. Usually you have to commute to work, which might take you anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours or more each day, and that's pretty much just completely wasted time. I mean, during the workday, you aren't necessarily wasting all your time. It depends on the job, but in most jobs, you probably at least learn something, at least halfway valuable at some point during the workday. But when you're driving to work, just sitting in traffic, even if you listen to an educational podcast or something, I mean, that's pretty much just time wasted. I don't think I've ever met somebody that likes sitting in traffic. And I've done every different type of commuting there is. I've driven to work, I've rode my bike to work, and I've taken the train to work. There's pros and cons to each type of commute, but for the most part, they are all wasting your time on some level. If you walk or ride a bike to work, I mean, that's definitely the best because at least then you're getting some exercise, but realistically, most people in the US, you can't even do that. You can't ride a bike to work due to the local infrastructure or lack thereof. But even for those that can ride a bike to work, depending on how far away you are from work, that probably still takes up a lot of your time. And it also forces you to be doing that exercise at a certain time every day. If you just weren't stuck in your wage slave 9 to 5 job, You can still ride a bike for exercise, except you don't have to do it in rush hour traffic, and you can choose when and where you want to ride. That's another major issue about the typical 40-hour-a-week 9 to 5 job. It just limits your freedom in so many ways. But back on the topic of wasted time, so much of your life is being wasted. So let's say you work 100% remote, or maybe your workplace is like next door to your house or something, so you basically have no commute. You're still going to be wasting more than just 40 hours a week. This is something that I think most people don't really ever think about, but even if you don't commute at all, as long as you're not some kind of cyborg or something, you're going to be wasting some amount of time just mentally preparing or just psyching yourself up for work. There's also some amount of time you're going to be spending at home thinking about work. Like, you can't just turn it off 100% as soon as you clock out. People talk about how certain jobs you have to take your work home with you and certain jobs you don't. But the fact of the matter is that you're going to be taking your work home with you to some degree, no matter what job you're working. Because there will be times, and if you've ever worked a 9 to 5 job, then you know this, there are going to be times when you just can't help but think about work. And I know some of you might not know exactly what I'm talking about here, but I think I know how I can explain it in a way that most of you will understand. Think of a hobby you like to do, and it's probably best if it's something you can do at home in the nighttime. So for most of my viewers, that's probably playing video games or watching anime or watching movies or something like that. Okay, now I'm going to present 2 situations, and I want you to think to yourself, in which of these 2 scenarios are you having a more enjoyable time? Or is it the same for both? Okay, scenario 1. You're doing your thing, playing video games or whatever on Friday night. Okay? Scenario 2. The same thing. You're doing your thing, playing video games, watching TV, whatever it is, but instead of Friday night, it's Sunday night. Are you having an equal amount of fun in both scenarios? Or is one of those scenarios preferable to the other? I'm going to bet that most of you said scenario 1, the Friday night scenario, is the one where you'd be having a better time. And the reason for that, of course, is by Sunday night, you probably have some kind of sense of dread about having to go into work the next day. You're not going to be able to fully enjoy whatever it is you're doing because it's really hard to fully disconnect from your future responsibilities like that. Sure, you can still play Red Dead Redemption 2 on Sunday night, but you're not going to be able to fully enjoy it. You can't fully immerse yourself in your hobby because you can't fully disconnect your brain from your work life. Obviously, I don't know anything about neuroscience or psychology or anything, but I'd be willing to bet this is actually some kind of scientific concept that brain research people know about. My theory is that when you go into work, your brain essentially has to enter a whole new mode of operation because you have to put on your inoffensive, office-friendly work persona, and you have to be prepared to either sit in boredom for 8 hours or work your ass off digging ditches or whatever it is you do. But whatever that is, I know it's probably a whole lot different than whatever you would be doing at home in your free time. So your brain ends up having 2 different modes that it can shift between. You've got the regular brain and you've got the work brain. But the thing about it is that work brain, you're engaging that probably more often than you're engaging the regular brain. And you're not going to be able to just turn it 100% off all the time when you want it to be off. That work brain is going to come back to you during your regular brain time sometimes. Like on Sunday night when you know work is imminent, that work brain, you probably can't just start it up and shut it off like the flick of a switch. It's more like an old computer that takes a long-ass time to reboot. And the startup duration is going to differ for every person and for every job. But there is a startup time, and it's not instantaneous. So on Sunday night and at random other times throughout the week or even the weekend, the work brain is gonna start up. And maybe it has to start up on Sunday night because maybe for you it takes 16 hours to boot that work brain up. So your 40-hour-a-week job isn't just wasting 40 hours of your life each week. It's wasting a lot more than that, actually. And you can't even really pick and choose when you're gonna end up wasting some of your time just thinking about work or stressing about work or psyching yourself up for work or whatever it is. You are wasting an immeasurable amount of time if you work a regular 9 to 5 job.
And it truly sucks. It sucks hard. And that's probably the biggest reason why I say at this point in my life, I've realized that life is hardly even worth living if I have to work a 9 to 5 job. But there is another component to this, and it is kind of related to the whole wasting time thing. But what it is that I find it impossible, like it's literally just not possible for me to actually care, even remotely, about any work I'm doing if it isn't something I'm doing for myself. Like, when I work on this YouTube channel, and it felt the same way back when I was working on my old YouTube channel that failed, I actually feel like I enjoy the work that I'm doing. I don't even care about how many hours I'm putting in because that's not time that I'm wasting. I enjoy it. And I think the biggest part of that, why I enjoy making these videos and making these thumbnails and every other part of working on this channel, it's because all of that work, all of that time, that's going toward creating something that I own. It's mine. It belongs to me. And whether a video just flops and gets less than 100 views or it goes viral and gets 100,000 views, at the end of the day, I made that video. I own that video, and the fruits of my labor belong to me, not some soulless corporation. Even if I had a job where, let's say I got hired by some small company to make a YouTube channel for them, and they let me make whatever kind of video I want, and let's say they give me total freedom so I can make any kind of channel, any kind of videos I want. It's all up to me. And let's say they pay me a salary of $100,000 a year to do this. Well, even in that situation, the actual work I'd be doing would be exactly the same, but the final product, the channel and the videos themselves, they wouldn't belong to me. And even then, where I supposedly have free reign to make any kind of videos I want, on some level, I would always know I'm doing this for someone else. So that would influence what I decide to focus on. And it would just influence every single decision I'd make. And it would also turn what is currently something I love to do, it would turn that into a responsibility imposed by a third party. And I don't know if this is something that everybody is going to be able to understand because I think a lot of people just don't have that natural inclination toward personal freedom and ownership of the fruits of your own labor, which is fine. Like, if you make a living working for Microsoft or Walmart or whatever, and you feel like you have a good life and you're happy with that, then that's good. I'm not saying my way of thinking is the only right way of thinking or anything like that. But for me, there's just no way I can bear it. If I'm supposed to work for 8 hours a day, almost every day, for a fixed amount, I will never be able to find the motivation to do anything more than the bare minimum. And on top of that, I'll be completely miserable. I do think maybe some kind of commission-based job could possibly be something more bearable for me because at least then, there is an incentive to actually do high quality work. And, I'd actually be able to see directly how my work translates to profit. Because in a regular salary job, I get paid the same amount, whether I do high quality work or if my work is just total garbage. So there's no way for me to actually care in any way about actually putting in my best effort. And I think maybe if I had a job where I got paid based on the quality of my work, that might be something I could actually enjoy. Because that might trick my brain into feeling the same way it feels when I actually do work toward creating something for myself. Because the end result is kind of similar, like I do some work, then based on the quality of the work I put in, I receive some amount of profit. A job like that, it would at least be kind of simulating the environment of me working for myself. So maybe I could enjoy a job that paid on some kind of commission basis, but the problem with that is that, to the best of my knowledge, the vast majority of commission-based jobs are in sales. Actually, it might be the case that all commission-based jobs are in sales, and that's something I know I would hate. For one, because that would almost definitely involve a lot of dishonesty on my part, which is not something I want to be a part of. And then also, I just have crippling social anxiety. So I think I would be in a constant state of panic or something like that if I had to work in sales. And I have heard of some welding jobs, I think, where you do your welding, then an inspector will come by and rate your work, and then you get paid a different amount for each weld based on how the inspector rated it. So if you do a perfect weld, you might get $25 for that weld, or if the inspector rated your weld as just acceptable, then you might only get $15. Or if the inspector rates it as unacceptable, then you would get $0 and have to do it again. I know I've heard of that type of job before, but I don't know how common that is. But something like that, I think I could probably do that kind of job. I mean, thinking about it, if I was going to work for someone else, that's pretty much the perfect job for me. It wouldn't have to be welding, that's just the only example I've actually heard of, but I do know how to weld, so if anyone listening to this knows a job like what I'm talking about, please contact me or just leave a comment about it, because that's actually something I think I could do. I think I could actually be happy working on an assembly line or something if I was getting paid a certain amount based on each thing I assembled, because I don't know what it is, but I think maybe it's because in a situation like that, I feel like I'm in control. Like it's actually up to me how much I earn. So, in a sense, that's kind of the same thing as building something for myself. But yeah, I don't know if that kind of job even actually exists. So, realistically, I think I really am done trying to find employment. A regular 9 to 5 job just isn't worth it.